Hi, I'm Dennis Wilson. At Delta Dental of New Jersey, we're committed to educating the public about the importance of good oral health and its role in our overall health and well-being. That's why we're proud to support the important healthcare programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Comfort and care at the end of life. Next on Caucus, New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus, New Jersey has been provided by New Jersey Council of County Colleges, Partners for Health Foundation, partnering to make our communities healthier, better places to live. The Russell Berry Foundation, Delta Dental of New Jersey. Everyone deserves a healthy smile. NJM, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and more, with a focus on safety and financial stability. Cohn Resnick, accounting, tax, and advisory, where forward thinking creates results. And by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com. And by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. What exactly is an end-of-life doula? And how can a doula support not only the person facing death, but also their families? Here in the studio to help us understand the role of an end-of-life doula, we have Henry Fersko-Weiss, who is the president of the International End-of-Life Doula Association. Jamie Anderson, a volunteer coordinator at the Holy Name Hospice and Villa Marie Claire. Dr. Arnold Scham, medical director of Valley Hospice and board certified in hospice and palliative care, and also a psychiatrist. And also, finally, Catherine Newman is a volunteer, end-of-life doula at Villa Marie Claire. I want to thank all of you for joining us. And by the way, you're going to see important websites up throughout this half-hour program about a subject that I will tell you I wasn't all that thrilled to do, but I know it's important. Why is this important to be talking about end-of-life doulas? Why is it so important?
Because I think a lot of people don't die well in this culture. They don't have the kind of support and guidance that they truly need at a point in time when they're exhausted often from caring for somebody, perhaps for years, and emotionally they're kind of at the end of their rope. And they feel often unprepared and not well supported. And because they become so focused on the care that they need to do, when they need to give medication, they don't really take care of looking at meaning, the meaning of this person's life, honoring this person in a way that will really help them to have the kind of passing that they want.
So who's this doula? What is this doula? I know that when my wife was having our children, there was a doula.
Yes, yes. Well, there
for
are,
birth.
Right, there are birth doulas, and there are also end-of-life doulas. An end-of-life doula is someone who is trained, especially in caring for a patient and their family during the end-of-life process. They provide support, respite care.
Be specific. Does what?
Well, I think the most important thing I do as an end-of-life doula is provide information for the patient and families, such as, did you know that hearing is the last sense to go when someone is dying? Hearing. So it's important for our families to know that they should still talk to their loved ones, but also not to have some brawl in front of them either, because the patient can hear it. So for me, as an end-of-life doula, providing that information for families is a key ingredient in what we do. Support and respite care, emotional support is a very broad topic, but it depends on what the family needs. There are
Each family needs different things?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we may not even be with the patient. We may be comforting the family the entire time if they need it. Because many times, depending on the dynamics of the family, we may not get that close with the family. If you've got family members very close by, we may not be viewed as someone they want right by the bedside, so we're comforting family. But we've also had patients who have no one and then the doulas are there.
You're it? The doulas
We're
it?
it. We're it. And the doulas are there round the clock to provide comfort, respite care, whatever has, as Henry mentioned, whatever has meaning for this person in their last hours or days of their life.
And these doulas, who are they?
We have doulas from all walks of life. We have nurses, we have social workers, we have doctors, and they come to us to volunteer to offer the support, again, to the patient and the family as a unit. And I think one of the most important things, to piggyback on what Henry said, is that while this caregiver is taking care of all the needs of everybody else, they're not taking care of themselves. And I think that our doulas offer that person the opportunity to experience and share in the remaining part of the patient's life.
What about you?
I'm a doula as well, but I'm a volunteer coordinator.
I know,
the
but
doula
why?
program. I actually came into a hospice because of my own personal experience with my mom and her dying process, and feeling as though I was powerless, that I didn't have any sense of understanding of what the hospice and end of life was, and we didn't plan for it properly. And my family, my mom, the gift that she gave me is that she always said, don't you have me hooked up to any machines, I'll come back and I'll haunt you. So I knew that she didn't want to be hooked up to machines.
You knew what she didn't want.
Right.
What did she want?
I didn't know.
Did you ask?
The thing is, like many of the families, we ended up in a situation where she had multiple ailments that anyone could have taken her out. She nicked her leg and she got an infection that became septic. So we're thrown into this whirlwind where she had some strokes and just a whole bunch of things. And many of the families come in where the patient went into the doctor with a pain, and they came out with a prognosis of not living past 6 months.
But before we move to the doctor, what could a doula have done to have helped your family, in your opinion?
If I had the support of a doula, it would have allowed me to be free to spend the time with my mother, to take the rest that I needed, if I needed a rest, and someone else would be there with her.
To do what?
To
hold her hand?
To hold her hand. The doulas actually create different rituals, and based upon what the families and the patients want. The patient has the right to say, this is what I want my death to look like. And we begin that care plan with them.
You get to know the family from the
I think
visit.
people are having a hard time. I want to get to the doctor, but people are having a hard time. Like when you say rituals, people need to understand, is it music? Is it
It's all of that.
What is it?
It is what we go in and meet the family, meet the patient, and little by little through the visits that we will go and do, we will learn more about, is this person a veteran? What kind of music does this person like? What do they like to eat? What are what are special things that have meaning to them? Do they love their garden? And once we can get that kind of information just from coming in and sitting and talking with the patient, as well as if the family members will give us some information.
What do you do with it?
We put together a plan, as I'm sure Henry can explain even in more detail, but we will put together a plan where we will have, as the time gets closer, when the person is in the dying process, of having a sacred space, whether it's in the bedroom, whether it's in a family room, wherever that patient is going to die, having certain music, having certain things read to them, poetry, psalms, depending on how religious they are. All of that comes into play with the plan.
Doctor,
Okay.
You told our producers that dying is sacred. You told our producers that we as a society, many of us, and I'll include myself in this, have an attitude toward death that isn't all that healthy. That death is the enemy. Is what you're hearing right now moving in a healthier direction?
Yeah, I think so. And I'd like to frame it a little differently.
Try.
Palliative care.
Palliative care.
Palliative care.
Define that. I don't want to assume anyone has any understanding of these
definitions. Palliative care is a field that's developed that focuses on pain, other symptoms, and suffering for a patient and their family from the beginning of illness through their life, through death. So doula is at the end of life a form of palliative care to help prevent suffering and symptoms. in the beginning, if people first get a diagnosis of a serious illness, palliative care can help them deal with it and help them with symptoms, even though they may have a long prognosis and may live many years. So there's a spectrum of palliative care, and hospice is the part of the spectrum where people no longer continue with life-sustaining treatment, but comfort is the goal. And doula is the end of that spectrum.
And doula has great value here?
Yes. And when the comment before about what we do, you know, as a psychiatrist, people always say, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's the value in listening and being there. If you look at any medical care you've gotten, the doctor you think or the nurse you think is best is someone who listened to you, understood you, and was there for you. And doulas do that in a very thorough way.
Now, does the medical community, by and large, acknowledge the value of end-of-life doulas and encourage them?
I think it's beginning to happen. This is really a fairly new movement in the end-of-life care, yes.
By the way, in the process, let's talk a little bit about the training of doulas, but go ahead.
Okay. You know, I started this 12 years ago, and at that point, there was no such thing as an end-of-life doula.
Why did you start this?
I started because I was a hospice social worker, and I saw what I thought were very unfortunate deaths, where people missed the last breaths that they had wanted to be there for, or somebody wound up dying in the hospital instead of at home when they wanted to be dying at home. And I realized that there was a gap in the services that hospice could provide just because of the structure and logistics of what hospice does. And so I started to think about, how do we change that? And that's when I came upon birth doulas, because a friend of mine was studying to be one. And I realized that that was a model that we could translate into end of life, and that made wonderful sense, because there's a lot of similarities between birth and death.
Are there?
Yeah. There's some clear differences, but...
What are the similarities?
The similarities are...
Birth seems awfully happy to me.
Well, but there's pain involved. In labor, the labor of birth as well as the labor of death, there is pain involved. It's looking at the whole unit, because birth doulas work with not just the woman in labor, but the partner and any immediate family that want to be present and part of that process. And it's the same at the end of life. So there's those similarities which allowed us to translate a lot of things from the birth doula world. And I think you hit upon a really important point, which is that we're comfortable talking about the things we don't want. It's talking about what we do want that I think is new, and that people don't really pay enough attention to, and that doulas help people to take a look at and to think beyond just the simple physical care.
So let's break this down. We were actually, as we were getting ready for the show, I mean, the process, not that people watching public broadcasting or FIOS care about this, but the process of getting ready for the show is our producers do this wonderful job booking terrific guests like yourself, and we try to figure out what we want to accomplish, and then I look at all these files and the folders, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, wow, how are we going to make sense of this? How are we going to make it relevant? How are we not going to make it incredibly depressing? And I've been thinking about this a lot, and then we were just talking before I went in here, and the question I asked myself is, how do we make this relevant for our audience and not depressing? And finally I came up with this. When is it? This is the question I started asking, and I want to put it out here right now. When is this discussion that you just described relevant? Where you start asking, oh, so what would you like your death to look like? I don't know. I'm in my 50s, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, it's about a good time. I'm thinking, no, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that because I find that incredibly depressing. I find that to be something I don't want to think about that until I have to think about that. And part of the problem with that is it's too late to think about it then, because you may not be
able to do it.
So help me, because it's not just me, it's all of us, all of you, who say to yourself, Steve, what are you doing? I don't want to think about this now. Help us.
I just want to say something about that, because in our training, when we train doulas,
you do train.
We train. There's a 22-hour training that we put people through, and part of that process is for people to take a look at their own deaths and how they would want their vigils. And
What do you mean a vigil?
These are the time when somebody is actively dying, the last days of life, and how they want that space to look, what kind of music, as
Right.
Kathy was saying, what kind of reading, what kind of ritual we
Can I
use.
have like reruns of my old public television? I'm joking.
Absolutely.
If that's what
Absolutely.
you want, you can have it.
You realize how painful that is for all the people sitting around me? The people in the control room, you can't believe. I know what's going on right now. I'm going to have you all there. You're all coming back, whether you like it or not, and we're watching them. Go ahead.
So what I can tell you is that when people go through this exercise, they are not depressed. They feel, wow, this was an amazing exercise
Really?
that helped me to feel better and more comfortable about the fact that someday I am going to die.
Is it about going back and asking ourselves, what is it about our lives we want to celebrate?
You know
Is
what?
that it?
I think
That's
I
part
think,
of it.
First of all, we have to understand a birth is going to happen and a death is going to happen, whether there's a doctor, whether there's a doula, whether it's going to happen.
Something's happening.
And so at the end of the day, if you can empower yourself and say, you know what? It doesn't have to be an everyday conversation. It just has to be a conversation. The door
How do you
has to
start
be
it?
open. I think that having had the training and offering the program and support to the families
People
and
at
the
home,
volunteers,
not the doula.
Right.
Someone at home right now.
how do you start
Yes, how do they
the
start that?
conversation? You first have to have the conversation with yourself. You know, what do I want to leave my kids responsible for planning this? You know, my experience.
And guessing what I would like.
Exactly. My experience as an adult child of someone who passed away, it was painful just going to the funeral home, picking out certain things. And it was just kind of like, I don't know what she wants. You know, I just don't know. And just because as a parent, you want to say, you know what, let me prepay for this. And let me just write down what my wishes are and put it in a nice little bow and put it someplace and my kids know where it's at.
But that's after you're gone. We're talking about the act of dying process. Aren't they two different things?
They are two different things, but the conversation, the door has to be open for the conversation. So Henry will tell us in training, you know, to plan our own process, our transition.
Yes.
So for me, after I had the training, I actually spoke to my kids, my older kids, and I
You
said,
did?
I did. I said, you know, it's interesting. I think I really want to write down what I want. I don't want you guys to struggle with this. I want you all to be able to send me off in a celebration and not worry about the little
Your kids
particulars.
must be young kids.
No.
You're a young woman. Okay.
I am, but we won't talk about that though.
Okay.
My children know what I want as well.
Your
And
children know what you
my
want.
My children, I've already talked about it. I am an end-of-life doula as a volunteer, but I'm a pediatric palliative care nurse. I've
Right.
done pediatric end-of-life care for years, and I made it clear to my own family about some of the things that I would like.
You
and I
said
have
it specifically.
Specifically,
Do
I
you
have
want to say it
adult-
on the air or not?
Oh, my children know. Instead of mass cards, because I'm Catholic, when I die,
I love the mass cards.
I have a favorite recipe: wild rice and chicken casserole.
No,
It
no,
only
no.
goes
Are you
when
s-
I'm gone.
You-
That's what's going to be passed out. Of course, my daughter has said to me, "Mom, please let me know where that recipe is before you take in your last breath." But that's what's going to be passed
You
out.
had that conversation.
I most certainly did, with all, and they all know it.
Yeah,
they
my
all
kids-
know it.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
With my parents, who last time I checked aren't going to live forever, do I say to them, because they're not bringing this up, trust me, do I say, Mom, Dad, I want to talk to you? They're not starting the conversation. Can we talk? I don't want to guess. I'd like to know how you would like to transition. I'll use your expression. Dad, I know you like Wagner, you know, the great composer, German composer. I also know you like Sinatra. Which one do you want?
Well, you can have both. There's
Okay,
no
but
reason
the-
why.
the music we go through?
You can go through.
Yeah.
Well, you could just say to them, you know what? We're all going out of this world. Nobody gets out of this world alive, Steve.
But I could start that conversation.
Of course you could.
Doctor, you say?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is correct. Most people avoid this conversation.
Yes.
Most doctors avoid this
Most
conversation.
doctors.
Most everybody
true. Oh my
avoids this
God.
Go ahead.
conversation.
And they're saying don't. Your colleagues are saying stop avoiding it.
Well, some are saying stop avoiding
What are you
it.
saying?
Well, you need to have the conversation, but it's not easy to have. And when you try to have it with people, they often walk out of the room or change the subject.
Yes.
So this is something that takes time.
Yes.
And takes where you are in your illness and takes your background and your personality. So again, why we're starting early palliative intervention, so little bits of this conversation happen over many years. so that people get more comfortable with it.
And what's the payoff?
The payoff is a patient comes to me who has breast cancer and says, I think this is going to kill me, but I'm doing very well right now, but I think this is going to kill me. And I just wanted to discuss it with you because I can't talk to anyone else about it, and I know you'll listen to me. And we met once. Okay? A year later, she's in the ICU dying. She's in denial she's dying. 7 doctors who were treating her in denial that she's dying. The one doctor who told her the truth was fired by her and her husband. And the
Because they don't want to hear that.
They didn't want to hear it. And the husband says to me, I'm told by my wife not to tell the kids to come in from college to visit her because nobody wants to face it. So I first had a conversation with him and said, you have to face that she's dying. And then I go to her with him and we have the conversation. And she says, I'm not dying. These doctors are all giving me hope. I said, do you remember you once talked to me a year ago? And she suddenly breaks down crying and realized that all along she knew she was dying. And she finally was able to accept it, call her kids home, be honest with her husband. Then they went on a hospice program to get that kind of support. And then they're having these conversations, and ultimately with a doula program. So it takes a terrible time in life that nobody wants to face and makes it acceptable, and everyone hopefully is with peace rather than guilt and resentment and all the things that happen.
It doesn't have, okay, so as I just listened to you tell that, and you played an incredibly important role there, Doctor, death doesn't have to be terrible.
Right. The view, that is the key. What death looks like to us is beeping machines and all of this crazy chaos when it doesn't have to look like that. You know, I had a supervisor say to me, in the last 3 to 5 days of life, a person in the ICU can spend $25,000 a day. And the end result is going to be the same as if they went home on hospice or they went home on a program that could support them. And it doesn't look the same. It's a different, it looks different.
Different kinds of death.
Exactly.
There's such a thing as a good death, and that's what you'd all, that's what we would all wish for, that you would want to have, be surrounded by people that care about you and that love you, and whether it is your immediate family or whether it is someone who is trained in end-of-life care who is providing that comfort to you. That's the way we
You're not afraid, are you?
No, it's going to happen one way or the other, Steve. I can't avoid it, but I think for me, I'm very humbled by the work that I do. I'm humbled by every family and patient that we deal with in assisting them, hopefully in a good death. Not everything is a success. Not, you know, they don't all wind up as, you know, good as we may want it, but we do our best, and I think that it is a much better scenario than being in a hospital.
You know, one of the first deaths that we were participating in as doulas was a man who was 48 dying, and his mom had come from out of state to help take care of him. And when I met her, one of the first things she said to me was, I don't think I can watch my son die, but I also want to be there. I'm torn. And in some way, I felt like she was saying, I don't even think I can live through watching my child die. And when we started working on talking about meaning, planning for the last days, talking about how the doulas could support her, she started to gain confidence and feel more comfortable. And after he died, she said to me, this was amazing. I feel this was exactly the right death for him, and that it honored him, and I feel incredible peace in, you know, I'm going to grieve hard, I'm going to miss him terribly, but I am so glad the doulas were here because it transformed this from terror that I was feeling in the beginning to something that felt deeply meaningful to me and absolutely right for him.
Are you afraid to die? Or are you afraid to suffer miserably?
I ask the questions. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. But I'll just put it this way, after listening to you, the one thing, I have a minute left, Not in our lives, but in this show. What you just shared makes it clear that what we think we're capable of or not capable of, and I don't do commentary on public television, just I'll offer this perspective. What we think we're capable of or not may not ultimately be what happens, because with the help of others, particularly the kind of person you're talking about, an end-of-life doula, who is not just someone who has the skills and tools, but also has to have an extraordinary degree of empathy and compassion and humanity. It may not have to be the kind of death that some of us, I'll admit, Doctor, have come to conjure in our minds. I can't thank you enough for doing an incredible public service. You've helped a lot of people in ways we will never know. Thank you very much.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by New Jersey Council of County Colleges, Partners for Health Foundation, the Russell Berry Foundation, Delta Dental of New Jersey, NJM, Cone Resnick, and by the Fidelco Group. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Hi, I am Dominic Lee. I was recognized in 2015 with the Russ Berry Award for making a difference, for helping revitalize our school system in Newark. The award had a significant impact in my life. Help us identify and honor the unsung heroes in your New Jersey community who go unnoticed in their efforts to make a difference in the lives of others. You can nominate someone today for the Russ Berry Award for making a difference. The deadline for nominations is February 19, 2016.